doing this stream. So normally when you're ready for a January transfer window, you head into it with a few months of planning. You know what you need to do. You've got all the sort of structures and theories and ideas in place of what your plan is. And it is ideal to know every single one of your moves comfortably in advance. If you don't do that, then, well, to put it kindly, you're kind of screwed. You could end up accidentally filling a position with multiple people. You could be causing many, many problems for yourself. For example, look at the time where we accidentally sent Cody Gakpo. That wasn't fantastic. And it could ultimately lead to some fairly significant issues. Well, we were going to sign Cody Gakpo. We didn't sign Cody Gakpo. That was the problem, I would say. But late changes to your planning can hugely throw absolutely everything out of whack. And when that happens, you get a potential crisis in January. And we have had one of these very same late changes today with Daniel Farke's press conference. Now, again, I'm going to try and make this a bit video-esque. I'll dip into the chat afterwards so we can have a little bit of a natter about all of this. But for now, I'm just going to focus on getting through the story itself, and then we could talk about it. Cool? Cool. Fantastic. I'll still be reading the chats and starring them and everything, but it'll be fine. Basically, what we've learned is that Junior Firpo is out for the entire festive period. It looks like 4 to 6 weeks of no Junior Firpo, which is really depressing for me because I really like Junior Firpo. Really makes me happy. Real good guy. And, you know, he creates a lot of opportunities and we play reasonably well when he's here. If he's not here, I get a little bit spooked. But that's normal. Now, specifically asked about the January plans, Daniel Farke sort of delved into it a bit further and he said that it should not change too much if he rehabs well. Now, we know it's a 4 to 6 week thing. If it's 4 weeks, sure, back early January, especially if he's back a little bit quicker than that, if he just takes 3 weeks to get into the right condition and he's ready to play as soon as, brilliant. If it's the full 6 and it starts creeping into February and we get the issue of what happens with Pascal Struijk last season, maybe issues, because he said if it's more serious, we could give it a bit of a look. Now, normally you'd think that's okay. Squads are built so you've got a little bit of cover just in case. But I thought I'd have a little bit of a look at our left-back cover at the minute. You've got to consider that Sam Byram is rather an injury-prone guy. We've known this for a very, very long time. This is what he does. He is injured. Kind of natural. In addition to that, we know that Bogle is now a doubt because he's been dealing with a heavy load of matches recently. We've not really got a proper backup right back at the minute. So he's done a hell of a lot of work as of late. In addition to that, we know that Isaac Schmidt is a question mark because why is he not played at right back at any point at the moment this season? That could be a pretty big concern. And we know that Max Wober is Max Wober. Occasionally there's going to be mistakes happening there. And I don't really want to have to deal with those if it comes to it. So that means potentially, if Firpo is out for an extended period, we could end up being forced to look at signing someone to cover that position. And that means that it could affect January on a much sort of wider level. Because the way it affects January as a whole is when you're going into January between September and the month itself, you've got a nice 3-month gap in which you can do a bit of planning. October, November, December, cool. You're not in the summer window anymore. You've got the time to prepare for what you need in January. You can look at players, you can pick out who it is you want, and you can ultimately spend January shopping around. And since you've built this plan, you will tend to set yourself some strict budgets. You'll say, okay, we can spend this much on wages, this much on fees. Brilliant, fantastic, wonderful. That becomes a lot less feasible when you're being hit with injuries, because you go from the strict budgets that made sense prior to, well, now we need to sign more people, which is spooky because, of course, that takes money from these budgets and it means, well, okay, maybe we can't get the targets that we had down on the list over here, or maybe we'll have to spend a bit more overall and threaten PSR. And it means that outlined moves can just be out of the window because you've dealt with an injury that you've had to adapt to immediately. We know that left back is an important part of our side. Same for right back. They're a fundamental part of the way that we attack. And our attack is ultimately where all of our points are going to come from and where promotion's going to happen. In addition to that, defensively, not been too bad either. And if Firpo's not available, you may need to throw out a move that you've already planned to get in a Firpo replacement. And that's where things get a little bit scary. Because there is a potential need for a left back anyway. Because we know that Junior Firpo, A, injury issues. This has been a long-term sort of thing. Danny pointed it out just now in the chat. It's what happens. We know that Junior Firpo can be injured a fair bit of the time. In addition to that, we know that he's only got 6 months left on his contract, which makes it very, very, very difficult for Leeds to say, no, okay, you should stay in the summer, because point number 3, he's not necessarily Premier League level. And I love the guy completely, but last time we saw him in the Premier League, he wasn't quite there, and he might be, who knows? It might be a case of Junior Firpo is absolutely spectacular in the Premier League, just Marsh was bad with him, and he was always injured under Marcelo Bielsa. But we don't have any evidence for that. And it's a case of if we offer him a contract, it's not going to be as a starting player, and he can probably go over to Spain right now and start for a good few La Liga sides, which is where you get a little bit of a problem. And January is already a tough window. We know this. We know that other clubs will inflate their prices for their players because, well, one, they'll say, no, we're still using this guy. We're not going to sell you him for market value because he's a big part of our team. Sane football clubs don't do that in January. In addition to that, you've got the sort of built-up issue upon that of, well, players don't necessarily want to move because you're not going to make it into the lineup necessarily immediately because you need to adapt to the new place, to the club, to the manager, all this sort of stuff. You might as well just wait till summer and see if you can make it happen then. So it's just adding more strains on top of what is already a very difficult window for everyone all the time anyway. But there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel here for me. And it's Daniel Farke's past quotes on the subject of the January transfer window. Effectively, he's been saying throughout this entire sort of period, wait until January, wait and see. And this makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. Because previously it was in a case of, well, we'll wait and see what we need. We'll wait and see where we're looking weak in terms of the squad. And I personally approach that as okay, cool, we'll probably need a number 10 because in terms of on the pitch and tactics and stuff, that's where we're looking weak. It's not just about tactical side though, and that's what didn't clock in my head. What wasn't quite clocking was it's also about injuries. It's about if Junior Firpo can't do January, February, well, then there's not much of the season left, so you'll probably have to draft someone in to be on the safe side. And in addition to that, he's never ruled out a big move. He was specifically asked, would you consider a marquee signing? And he's said along those lines, if the right player at the right price comes... That was a nice hiccup. If the right player at the right price comes up, we'd be silly to not take them. And we would, because finding a player that is of a decent standard is essential for any football club. And the thing is, it doesn't make a difference whether it is January or whether it's summer. If there is a player going for a bargain price, you've got to jump on it. And that could potentially be coming in the left-back position. We've had lots of conversations around potential left-back signings. And we need to sign a new permanent left-back at some point anyway, so does this just shift the timeline a little bit? Plus, Farke has been consistently refusing to be pinned down to making one signing. He's not put his name to anyone. He's not said, we'll sign this guy, someone else, etc. He's just said, if there's the right marquee player, we'll go for it. And that doesn't matter what position that is. That's just whoever will get us across the line for promotion. So when it comes to predicting what is happening in January, it ultimately comes down to Junior Firpo. But we do need a left-back anyway. Quite badly. Because going into next season, Junior Firpo isn't quite there. We've got to acknowledge that. We don't know if he's going to be in the squad. We don't know if he's going to be playing for us. It's going to be a tricky period. But we know that we need a left-back anyway. Add on to that, there's a probable shout for a 10. It depends on whether we go for someone permanently or on loan. But I think this thing will add up to a case in which if we were looking at signing someone as a 10 more permanently, that's just become significantly more difficult. Because you need to spend a bit more money. Because this initially started with us coming out of the summer transfer window going, right, spectacular, cool, left-back options. We've got Junior Firpo, we've got Max Woba, we've got Byram if it comes to it. Sod it, I guess Woba can play there. But now we've got a position where Firpo is probably leaving in the summer anyway. Byram is also injury-stricken a lot of the time. Schmidt, we don't know what his place is right now. Voba could potentially push for a move as soon as January. And that all starts to build into an issue, and that builds into a case of maybe, just maybe, we need to sign more than we think. But at the end of the day, that is all just what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat if you're watching live, or the comments down below if you're not. If you are watching live right now, stick around. We're going to have a little bit of a natter in Questions Corner, which would be quite nice. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. If you are a video viewer, you can keep watching if you want, or if not, you can nip off. That's also cool. Subscribe if you're not as well. That would be fantastic. Comment, like the stream. That's always huge for pushing everything a little bit further. And yeah, ta-ra video people, but stream people, we are still here. And yeah, I'm feeling spooked now. We know I'm feeling spooked. Spooked is like a natural state of mind for some people. It's not typically the case for me. But sometimes you get into this spot where it's sort of like, well, I don't know what's going on right now. And that's a little bit of a scary place to be. So let's have a little bit of a conversation about it. Let's talk about where we are going, where we're going to be in January, and ultimately what things are going to look like. So, for example, Fernie saying you'd love us to sign Hamer in January. The thing with Hamer is I think he is one of the most misinterpreted players that the Leeds United fan base has looked at for quite some time. So with the Hamer thing, everyone was really pumped for him because it's brilliant. He can do attacking midfieldy things. He's not an out-and-out 10. He's not even a little bit an out-and-out 10. Let's have a quick look. Get the details, shall we? Let's try who scored and see if they've got it. But the tricky thing with Hamer is everyone is sort of pushing for us to sign him, but where does he fit in? You know, he's not an out-and-out number 10. So then you're going into the 3 midfield thing, but he also doesn't quite have the press. So you're going to be playing Hamer in behind with Piru in front, but where's your press coming from? It's coming from the wide areas, which means they'll have to drift in centrally, which leaves your wings exposed, which is real tough and real difficult and real unenjoyable. Right, let's have a very quick search. What was it? Gus Hamer. Stop Hamer time. It didn't find Hamer because apparently it's Gustavo, not Gus. Yeah, he's tended to play attacking midfield left for the majority of this season so far. So he's drifting out towards that side rather than just being a pure central attacking midfielder, which he's done once, at least according to whoscored.com. I'll be honest, I've not watched much of Sheffield United. I've not wanted to. 4 goals, 4 assists. Yeah, pretty decent return. Holy shit, how has he got 7 yellow cards? But I'm not convinced that he's this magic bullet that a lot of people seem to believe that Gus Hamer will be, which is why it's sort of a bit on the spooky side, because everyone goes, Gus Hamer is great, he'll be fantastic for us. Yet his pass completion of like 67% says that everything he does is real high risk, doesn't really receive many progressive passes. And yeah, sure, he tries about 6.5 a game, which is great. But if his pass completion isn't very good, then he's just going to keep trying lots and lots of things, and they're going to keep not happening. Plus, there is this fact, with Sheffield United being taken over, they won't sell anyone. And on this one, I don't think we do necessarily desperately need the number 10. It'd be nice to have. It'd like complete the squad a little bit, because everyone wants someone to do the creative passing stuff. But to say that the forwards aren't getting the service feels a little bit weird. And I will tell you why when FB ref loads, because I will have some numbers that I can bounce off you. Okay, so general rule of thumb. Number 10's there for chance creation, right? Good metric to track chance creation would be XG, expected goals, of which we currently have this season 31.9. The next team in front of us, of which there is one, is Middlesbrough, 34.2. We're 2.3 off them, which, fair enough, yeah, we're behind them. I get that. That's potentially an issue if you want to look at it that way. But Sheffield United, who Gus Hamer plays for, are about 7 XG behind us, 7.5. Sunderland, who we see as sort of an attacking side, about 8 behind us, maybe a little bit more. Burnley, 10 behind us. We're creating lots and lots of chances. And you know what? We're scoring them as well. At the moment, our XG is 31.9, goals for 33. We're getting opportunities. And I think, especially when you consider that, are we potentially, we're the second highest scorers in the league, behind only Norwich, even with Borough. I think they are getting service. I think one of the bigger issues that we're having is around consistency in finishing and taking the shot a lot of the time. Also, there is this, the fact that we may already have a number 10 within the squad. Because you're looking throughout the squad, you're going, right, okay, cool. So Aronson can play as a 10. Not a fan of Ramazani or Nonto in there. I prefer Nonto in sort of free role floating about, but you also need someone sticking centrally if you've got Willie Nonto doing that. So that's where things get a little bit complicated. Piru, not a 10. Not for me. Maybe Gelhardt, but I don't think he's of the level. Which is where things start to sort of spiral and get complex and stuff like that, because we might already have a number 10 within the squad. But I'm not super convinced. It would be nice to sign one, is the position that I'm in. I'm not one of the people that's like, we desperately need to sign a number 10, because if we don't sign a number 10, then it's all going to go wrong and we're going to suddenly not be creative anymore in the second half of the season. No, we're fine. Because if you look at how much we're creating from out wide, there's lots. And our wingers, I genuinely believe every single one of our wing players probably gets into the majority of bottom half Premier League sides. For me, 9 is more of a concern at the minute because it's about the finishing. Although if we're talking about volume of chance creation, Pat Bamford. Not going to dive into that one today. I know what direction that conversation tends to go, and I cannot be bothered having it right now. But as a general gist, looking ahead to January, I think the big fear that we have surrounds Firpo more than anything. Because if he needs replacing, things get a little bit more difficult. If he doesn't need replacing, then we're okay. But we want to be certain. In any case, I'm going to bring the stream to a close roughly there. I might do one over on Twitch a little bit later, but I've not quite decided yet. Because I'm going to keep it nice and short and see if shorter streams are stuff that people tend to click on a little bit more. So, yeah, that'd be quite nice. And I'll close out on a final little bit of what does your January shopping list look like? I would say a left back. I've not specifically picked one out because Leeds United scouts will know more than I do. I would quite like Ilan Cabal from Paris FC, but it would be quite difficult to get him out because they are also pushing for promotion in their league, which obviously we wouldn't sell our prize players, so why would we expect them to? And then if it comes to it, maybe a 9 on loan or something like that, but I'm not super desperate for anything. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the stream. If you did, pop a like on it, subscribe, become a channel member if you're not yet. That's always really appreciated. And yeah, going to bring the stream to a close there. And it's a little bit of an experimental one, but we'll find out how it goes. Hope you enjoyed. And we'll see you later. Toodaloo.